The encounter. The wind howled through the empty streets, carrying with it the scent of fresh rain. The sky was heavy with dark clouds, a storm waiting to break. Keanu Reeves walked through the park, his pace slow, his thoughts distant. It had been one of those days, the kind where life feels heavier than usual. He didn't know what had brought him to this park at this time. Maybe he needed the air, or maybe he just needed to walk away from the weight of his own mind. As he walked, something caught his eye. A figure sitting on a bench, alone, hunched over. Her face was hidden beneath the hood of her jacket, and her posture was tense. Keanu's instinct told him to keep walking, to let her be, but something about her made him pause. He took a step closer, and that's when he saw it, her hands cradling her stomach. She was pregnant. Keanu felt a sudden tightness in his chest. There was something so fragile about her, like she was holding on to life itself in that moment. He stood still for a moment, debating whether to approach or leave her to her solitude. But before he could make up his mind, she spoke. "I have nowhere to go," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Please, I don't know what to do." Her words hung in the air, soft but heavy, like a plea for help that had nowhere to land. Keanu felt the weight of her words deep in his bones. He took another step forward, his mind racing, not knowing what to say but knowing he couldn't leave her like this. Keanu sat beside her, his movements slow and careful, as if afraid to startle her. The bench was cold, but there was warmth in the way she looked at him. Her eyes were filled with fear and uncertainty, the kind of fear that comes from being utterly alone in the world. He could see it in the way she held herself, as though she were trying to shrink away from everything. Life, people, the world. "What's your name?" Keanu asked, his voice gentle. He didn't want to seem too forward, but he needed to know more. "Lily," she replied, her voice trembling. Keanu nodded, his mind racing. "Lily, I don't know what's brought you here, but you're not alone. Not right now." Lily didn't say anything at first. She just stared at the ground, her hands still on her stomach. Keanu could see the faintest hint of tears in her eyes, but she blinked them away quickly. He didn't press her for more. Instead, he sat in silence, allowing her the space to gather herself. He thought about his own life for a moment. His career, his successes, the things he'd built for himself. But in that moment, all of it seemed meaningless compared to the weight of Lily's situation. Here she was, pregnant, with nowhere to go, and a world that didn't seem to care. It made everything else feel so insignificant. Keanu cleared his throat. "You can stay with me for a while. I have a guest room. You're welcome to rest there. I can help." Lily's head snapped up, disbelief written all over her face. "You'd do that for me?" she asked, her voice small but full of gratitude. "Of course," Keanu said without hesitation. "I can't just walk away from someone who needs help. You're safe with me." A new beginning. The next few days were a blur. Lily moved into Keanu's guest room, and he did his best to make her feel comfortable, though he could tell she was still uneasy. She barely spoke about her past, and Keanu didn't press her. He knew better than to force someone to open up when they weren't ready. But as time passed, Lily began to show small signs of trust. She'd smile when Keanu offered her food, or when he made her laugh with some silly joke. Little by little, the walls she had built around herself started to crumble. She was still quiet, still reserved, but Keanu could see the shift. One afternoon, Keanu came home to find Lily sitting on the couch, her hands resting on her stomach. She looked up as he entered the room, and for the first time, there was a glimmer of hope in her eyes. "Keanu," she said softly, "I've been thinking, maybe I'm not as alone as I thought." Keanu smiled, his heart swelling with something he couldn't name. He sat beside her and placed a hand on her shoulder. "You never were alone, Lily." "Not really." For the first time in a long time, Lily allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, there was a way forward for her and her baby. The storm. Just as things began to settle, the storm outside grew fiercer. The wind howled and the rain came down in sheets, beating against the windows of Keanu's house. But it wasn't just the storm outside that threatened to tear things apart. It was the storm brewing inside Lily. One evening, as they sat down for dinner, Lily suddenly collapsed in Keanu's arms, clutching her stomach. Panic surged through him as he held her, his heart racing. "Lily!" he cried, his voice shaking. "What's happening? Talk to me." Tears filled Lily's eyes as she gasped for breath. I don't know.
I'm scared, Keanu.
What if something happens to the baby?" Keanu's mind spun as he helped her to the couch, doing his best to comfort her. He could see the fear in her eyes, and for the first time, he realized just how much responsibility he had taken on. But he couldn't let her see his doubt. He couldn't let her see how scared he was, too. "You're not alone, Lily," he said, his voice firm. "We're in this together. I'll be here with you, every step of the way." And he was. He stayed by her side through the pain, through the uncertainty, and through the fear. He called a doctor, he comforted her, and he stayed up with her when she couldn't sleep. Keanu didn't know what the future held, but in that moment, he was sure of one thing. He wasn't going to let her face it alone. The test. Days turned into weeks, and Lily's health began to stabilize. But the emotional toll of her situation was heavy on her heart. She wanted to believe that things would be okay, but doubt and fear still gnawed at her. She was carrying a child, a new life, but she didn't know if she could be the mother that child needed. She didn't know if she was strong enough. Keanu could see the struggle in her eyes, the way she'd often stare off into the distance, lost in her thoughts. It broke his heart to see her like that, but he didn't know how to fix it. All he could do was offer his support, his friendship, and his kindness. One evening, after dinner, Keanu took Lily's hands in his. "I know you're scared, but you're stronger than you think. You've already survived so much. And now you're going to be a mother. You have a chance to give your child a better life, and you're going to do it." Lily looked at him, her eyes filled with tears. "But what if I fail? What if I'm not enough for this baby?" Keanu smiled gently, his voice full of reassurance. "You're already enough, Lily. You've been enough all along." It was a small moment, but for Lily, it was a turning point. She realized that she wasn't alone in her journey. She had Keanu, and more importantly, she had herself. The unexpected. Months passed, and Lily gave birth to a beautiful baby girl. The joy in Keanu's heart was beyond words. He had watched Lily grow, not just physically, but emotionally, into a mother who loved her child with everything she had. They weren't just surviving anymore, they were living. One evening, as Keanu sat with Lily and her daughter, he couldn't help but think about the path that had brought them here. It had all started with a simple moment of kindness, a decision to help someone who needed it. And now here they were, a family. "Thank you, Keanu," Lily said, her voice filled with gratitude. "I never thought I could be here, but you believed in me. You helped me believe in myself." Keanu smiled, his eyes soft with emotion. "You didn't need me to believe in you, Lily. You just needed to believe in yourself." As they sat together, the storm outside finally passed, leaving only the calm of a new day. And in that calm, they had everything they needed: love, hope, and each other.